This is a nice little drawing from Joanna Besford's book Ivy and the Inky Butterfly. And I'm going to color this one. And I will try to show you something about shading, mainly shading, but also I will try to explain a little bit about how I choose my colors, because there have been a lot of questions about it. How do I choose my color palette? And this is Prismacolor Premier Ginger Root. I'm just going to start coloring, and then I hope along the way I can tell you. So about my color palette, it is not that I choose my colors first and then start coloring. I just pick a color, and nature is always my place to start. So in this case, I'm not exactly sure where this drawing will go. So I choose a neutral tone, like this one, Ginger Root. Today I really feel like I want to color with Prismacolor Premiers. Really, I am really in the mood for these soft pencils. They are good quality pencils, but because the manufacturing process was not as good as it used to be, many people started complaining about breakage. Now I have my Prismacolor pencils. I received them as a gift, and you know, they came by mail, and in the beginning I had quite some breakage, but I decided to lay them in front of the window, and they would get a lot of sunshine and heat for months, and that allowed the core, the inside of the pencil, to melt a little bit, and so all the breakage would melt, and the cores would be glued together. And since then, since I put them in the sunshine, I haven't had any breakage. So now they are a complete joy to use, absolutely joyful pencils. So I completely understand that if you have no breakage issues with these Prismacolor Premiers, they can be your very best friend. The only thing is they are extremely soft, and for some colorists these pencils may be too soft, and then a slightly harder pencil may be better. Okay, now when it comes to shading, you will have to determine where the light comes from. So in this case I am imagining that there is sunshine, and now the question is, where is the sun in the sky? Most of the time I place my light source, the sun, on the right side of the drawing. I don't know why I do that all the time. Maybe that has to do with me being a left-handed. This is an interesting color, beige sienna. Let's try that one as a first layer for a little bit of shading. Now, for example, with this toadstool, there will be a lot of shadow here because of the huge, we say in Dutch, the head of, you know, a head like you put on your head. The head of the toadstool. This is interesting. Let's add some shading here. So this is the first thing that I do, just determining where the lighter and the darker areas are. Roughly determining, because I can always add more shadow. Now, of course, there will be shadow here as well and here as well. But, let's try this one, kelp green. Look, this is the result of the sun treatment. This is all wax that came out while it was lying in the sun. So, that looks better. I did some shading. It is the end of October. Tomorrow it will be November 1st. And it's cold outside. The days are getting darker. It's, you know, the sun is low on the horizon here in the Netherlands. It's summertime almost in Australia, New Zealand, you know, the southern hemisphere, South America. Wow, I like this color. Let's add a lighter green, spring green, just as an extra layer. I hope the camera will pick up the colors, because it's gray outside and there's not much light right now. I'm starting to notice it more, and that has everything to do with my eyes. Here's the other, the kelp green. I am over 40, and then you will slowly notice that you need better light when reading, and sometimes you need reading glasses, and goodness, that is happening. This one is peacock green here, and in the back you can see it has been baking in the sun. There are those white spots, that is wax, and that is the sign that the treatment worked. And since I've put my pencils in the sunshine, I've had no breakage. So yes, I almost need my reading glasses. Sometimes I use them. Most of the time I use them, I have to use them when I'm tired or when there's a migraine coming. So I'm still drawing after nature, so I choose a red, crimson red for... Now this is a darker red, and I know I chose that eventually the light will come from the right. So here's the darkest part. I have to say these Prismacolor Premiers work beautifully on the paper of Ivy. I still haven't read the story, so I have no idea what the book is about. The grandparents of one of my nieces and nephews, their grandparents live in the United States, and also two uncles of the kids. So maybe I could read this book with those two kids. Right now they know very little English, but they are only 6 and 3 years old. So their grandparents, they are Dutch, they speak Dutch, and the two uncles speak Dutch too. The two uncles live in the United States, so they speak English, and their wives do too. One of them has a little girl, so the family of those two nieces, that niece and nephew of mine, is English speaking. In the end, they will speak English more and more, I think. So, and I have to say, all of my nieces and nephews, they all know how to handle an iPad, you know, a tablet. Even the youngest one, who was 1.5 years old, he knows how to find stuff on the iPad. So, you know, my nieces and nephews, they are watching a lot of English videos on YouTube. So I think they will learn English in no time. This looks like a very bright orange. I'm using a light touch. my do you say eldest or oldest? My oldest, whatever. Please tell me. My eldest niece, my oldest niece. Well, she's almost 15 years old right now. And she's learning several languages in school. She's learning English and German and French. And she really has a talent for French, so it seems. She instinctively feels how the word should be pronounced. That's very nice. Here in the Netherlands, if you are 11, 12 years old, then you are in the last class, in the last year of elementary school, I think. Here's the crimson red. And then you go to the next school. It's always difficult to explain because every country has its own school systems. But when you are 11, 12 years old here in the Netherlands, you go to the next school, and then I believe it's some sort of high school. And then you start learning about the languages. And the last, I believe, 10 to 15 years in the Netherlands, there has been an increase of teaching English in elementary school, but not every elementary school does that on the same level. So some kids are having trouble in the first year of, well, let's call it high school. Let's try this little one. Mineral orange. Let's see. Many high schools, I just call it high school, that's easy. Many high schools here in the Netherlands expect the first year's students to have a basic knowledge of English, but because not all elementary schools have English lessons on the same level, some kids just do not have that basic knowledge, and they can have a hard time the first year or the first 2 years. When I was in elementary school, that is 35 years ago, we didn't have English lessons. that all started later. But we did have a lot of English and American TV series. So, and we used to watch a lot of those series at home. One of our favorite series was the A-Team, Crimson Lake. The A-Team, and that allowed us to get used to the sounds of English, what it sounds like. And another series we loved watching with the whole family was the Dukes of Hazzard, very old series. And then came the Australian series, The Flying Doctors. That was nice too. And many series came after that. Here I have a lighter tone, permanent red, and after a couple of layers of Prismacolor Premier, I can already feel, although I love these pencils, I can already feel that they do not layer as well as my Polychromos pencils. I think that has something to do with the consistency of the wax in the pencils. It feels like it saturates the paper very fast, which makes it a little bit more difficult to do extensive layering. Let's move over to a next toadstool. This is an interesting color called Goldenrod. This name, Goldenrod, reminds me of, well, I'm not sure, rood is both in English, or both in German and in Dutch called. It means red. So is this golden red? I don't think so, because the French name Verge d'Or means green gold. I have another pencil in the Polychromos series called Green Gold, and it is it looks similar to this one. I need to sharpen this one. Now there are several ways to do your shading. Some artists do the shading first. I've seen that. I've seen oil painters do that. They made an underpainting with the shading, and then they started adding glazing, light layers of colors, so the shaded areas would shine through, and that would give a great effect. And with colored pencil you can do both. You can either do the shading first or do it later. Now, many people are asking me, how do you choose your color palette? And that is such a difficult question to answer. I always start in nature, always. So, you know, in the Netherlands we have these beautiful toadstools, red with the white dots. So for this one I thought, well, this is the red one with the white dots. It is the toadstool most in the front of the others. This is closest to you. And we know that red tones give the impression that they are close to you. So a red toadstool over here may help create depth in the drawing. Now this one reminded me of a toadstool in the Netherlands that has a grayish white color. Not so interesting for this drawing, I think. So I decided to go for a natural tone, but with a little bit of warmth in it. And then I saw this pencil, Goldenrod, and I thought, well, let's give it a try. Now let's try something. This is dark purple, and I have seen artists use purple for an underpainting to create the shading. So I'm now going to use this not as an underpainting but to create shading. The light source comes from the right. So here this will be light, and on the other side it will be darker. I already already tried to show that a little bit. Here we go, very light touch. Very light touch. Now when you have round shapes, you will notice if you have something that is round, we can maybe even show it with the pencil. No, you can't see it because there's a shiny... Anyway, the shadow will gradually increase on round objects. So here is it is light, and then gradually it will become darker. It's a little bit about dusk and dawn on the planet Earth, you know, when the sun comes up in the morning. It's not like poof, you switch the light on, but it slowly becomes lighter. That is the same idea on round objects. So here's the sun, and so here it is light, and then it slowly becomes darker. Now, you can use, you can do it the other way around. So for example, with this toadstool, I could also do the shading first. And that immediately gives you an idea of how the drawing is going to look like. This may look very dangerous, what I'm doing, but this will actually work just fine. So let's see what happens if I add some color on top of this. Need a little bit more darkness here, and then gradually make it lighter.